Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Streaming Alchemy Show. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at running an awards show. So, all that's involved with the graphics and presentation, but also with the workflow surrounding this. So, our goal in this show is to cover everything using vMix and the new GT title designer, which allows you to do animated graphics inside of vMix, but frame it in a way that would work really well for a single operator production. Because I know for a lot of folks, they're in the boat of not having a lot of help when it comes to some productions. So that's what we're going to cover today. But before we do that, I just want to remind everybody that we'd love to have you join us here on the show. So please feel free to call in, share in the comments, whatever you'd like to become part of what we're doing right here. That would be great. And we'd love to have you do that. So, uh, Ken, welcome, Ken. Thank you for joining again. Always great to see you here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put together an award show that will involve multiple awards and will involve nominees for those awards, up to four nominees, and then a winner of the award for that particular award category. So this will give us what would be a very traditional model for an awards show. So if I switch over to my screen here, I want to give you a sense of what we're trying to do. So for nominations, what we want to be able to do is create an animated background. This is an animated right now, which has a picture of the nominee, their name, and the institution or church they may be representing. This is a ministry focused award show we're simulating here. And then up in the corner, it will tell you what award category is this nominee up for. And when we go through each one of the awards, uh, oh, John, welcome back. Good to see you from London. Uh, we're going to have a winner that will come up. And this will be handled using very similar graphics where you'll have the same sort of, rotating portal in the background. You'll have the award they won, their name, and this one will actually sort of go from the darkness, appear, and then hide away again, and it will switch to a camera. So again, the goal in doing this is to have it set up so that it doesn't take a lot of operator intervention to make these things happen. So, Frank, welcome to you. It's good to have you here. So, let me jump out of here, and probably the first place to start would be to look at what we did with GT Title Designer, how we set up the graphics. So let me see if I got that here. All right. So in GT Title Designer, we set up basically a template for how this entire uh, look will lay out in a graphic overlay. And one of the things you'll notice is that that portal piece isn't here. And the reason for that is while GT Title Designer does allow you to animate graphics, it doesn't embed video. Now, there are ways you can embed a sequence of stills, so that's a possibility. But for this, what we're going to do is we're going to overlay the graphic on top of a moving video. And so we'll go into that later. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how we set this up to do the awards. So in this case, what we wanted to do was create something that when it first came up, it would simply have the title of the award. And then you would be able to move as the operator between each one of the nominees individually. And the way we did that is we used a feature inside of GT Title Designer called Pages. So let me just show you up here. If you look in this section up here, when you set something up in GT Title Designer, you can set it up to say this is the graphics that I want to use when I transition in. But it also has something, if you drop down, called pages in here. So I believe there are 10 pages that are available. And what you can do is you can set up specific actions to trigger when I call up a page. So one of the first things when we think about GT Title Designer is the animation, but that animation is wrapped in this page concept too. So it can come up and when it transitions in, it will show whatever is in the base transition. But what I can do then is I can hide all the pages I don't want to have show. And when I transition to a page, I can hide other assets and show the page that I want to show. And that's how we did this. So every one of these things is set up for 4 nominees. So let me go back here and show over here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 nominees that are set. If we can zoom in a little bit more, yep. We have 4 nominees that are set up here. And we have the same basic information available for each of them. Their headshot image, which is this asset right here. Right now we're using a stand-in. Their first name, last name, and organization, which are the things you see angled over here. And then we also have this white background that fades out to transparent, which is for a background behind the text. And what we can do with each of these is we can set up individual animations. So up here, you can see, let me go to my page 1. So here in page 1, this headshot now fades in and it fades in right away and it takes 1/4 of a second to fade in. You'll see the next thing actually that will come in, let me go over here, is this white border which displays behind the name and organization. And that does a reveal. So this, at the same time that that head is displaying, that will come in and in over half a second, it'll do a sweeping reveal. You can see over here in the direction from the right over to the left. So it's just going to move right from here and paint across the screen that way. And then the name and the organization. Name appears half a second in, and the organization just a smidge later, and that's to create just a little separation between those two things, painting on screen. And what we do now that we have this set up, it's the exact same thing for the second page, third page, and fourth page, the 4 nominees we can have, is that when I call that page up in the graphic, this whole animation will play out. So that gives us now an easy framework to mirror across, in this case, I could have up to 10 nominees. So this would be something which has a lot of flexibility, is very easy to scale up, but doesn't require any more graphics. This is all done inside of one graphic where I'm just basically copying each one, placing it on its own page, and then working with those as individual presets inside the graphic that I can call up. So this really does everything I need to do around sort of the motion and the timing to call graphics up on screen. Now, you'll notice that everything in here is not set up with any real names. It just has stand-in names, stand-in organization, and stand-in imagery for the guest. And we're going to get to that next. So let me pop this down. And probably the next thing to do is let's actually take a look at how we're going to drive the information that will populate these graphics. So one of the things that is available inside of vMix titles is the ability to use an XML file to populate specific elements inside the graphic. We'll show how that's done, but I wanted to first show the XML file. So what we have here in this file is a set of basically tagged fields that come under the big grouping of award. And then we break it down to each one of the individual elements that we'd want to have for that award. So on here, we have what's the title of the award. So we're calling this the Alive Awards. And this is for, in this case, for best media in a in a liturgical service. Then under that, we have, you'll see these little blocks called nom 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are our nominees. And so we have the actual details for this nominee, for each one of these nominees labeled in this file. So in this case, we have a nominee image, and that what that is saying is this is the location, the file location, which contains that image. And we use that image as a PNG file that we call up to overlay on top of the graphic. We then have their name and the church or religious organization that that person would be from. And we do that for all four of these nominees. And this is the data that will actually go to populate the 4 page sets that we set up in GT Title Designer. We also at the bottom now have the winner. So not to give any spoilers here, but this is the winner, which has their image and their name, and again, the organization they're associated with. So now in this, for each one of these awards, what I do is I create an XML file. So if I have an award, in this case for like best vocal performance, best media, anything else that you'd want to put together, each one of those awards has an XML file associated with it. And now we're going to start to pull all this together inside of vMix to show you how this can then work as an actual production when we try to do this with some automation. So let me jump down here and go into vMix. Excuse me. So here's what we have as we look at the vMix layout. We have one graphic here, which is the graphic that will display behind the nominees that will be shown for each one of the awards. We have a second video over here, which is the graphic that will display behind the winner. So this graphic starts out blank, then zooms in so you can see the same similar portal look that's moving, displays the winner, and then goes back to a blank screen and switches to a camera. So this again is something that should be very easy for anybody that wants to do this single-handedly to operate. We also then have 2 of the GT Title Designer, they call them GT zip files, that we created. The first one is the one we went through already, which showed the space with the pages and the 4 nominees. And the second one just calls up the winner and is very similar in structure, but just doesn't have the pages, but just calls up a single winner in this case. And then we have a camera over here. And the way, let me just show you how this would operate. All I need to do to make this run is I go and fade in the nominations video. And what you'll see now is it actually went and loaded the overlay on top of that. And the way we did that was using triggers. So what we tell this graphic, this video to do is when you come on and transition in, put overlay 1 up with the nominations graphics, and also in preview, wait 2 seconds and load everything we need up for the winner graphic. So now in loading this, what we've set up is all the nominees and setting in preview what we need to do to display the winner. So what you'll see here is that I have the ability to just load this, but you see I have all the pages that I set up. So I set up 4 pages here. So if I pick any one of these pages, let me just go here, I now can call up a nominee. And you can see the animation that's actually happening with this, where when I click the page, it puts the head, fades in the headshot, and then expands the text backing and displays the text in the organization on top of that, along with the title of the award that we're talking about here. So now this is very easy because I can go through all of these and show all of the nominees. And then all I need to do is to fade in, and you'll see that the winner now appears. And this gives you something that's very easy to do because this is all being queued up. So as soon as I load a nominee, the winner gets loaded. As soon as I'm finished nominee, switch the winner in, then it loads up the camera. And it also, if you look, has queued things up for the nominee. But this would be kind of awkward if I had to do everything using the keyboard and the mouse here. So what I actually do, if you want to take a look from the top here, is we actually use a Stream Deck to do all of this. And I think this is what makes this such a simple mechanism for these types of productions. What I've done here is I've set this all up so that the triggers move everything in order. And then if I come up here, let me jump over here, settings, and I go to shortcuts, I actually set a whole set of Stream Deck buttons to do everything for calling up the pages and then switching in from preview, which sort of loads the winners or loads the nominees. So I have that all set up as buttons that are right here inside of vMix. And so when I combine that with everything I'm doing with the Stream Deck, I now have simple one button pushes for everything. So if I just show you here how I did all this, this now calls up the nominees. And I have across here the 4 nominees. So if I just push a button, you can see that I can switch between them and they pop up. And if I want to go to a different award, I have all my awards stacked up here. So let me just go and show. So here would be the winner. And this will jump back now to the camera when we're done. And what I can then do with everything set is simply say, I want to pick the next award. And what this will do is this will load in the XML file that we had set up to say, here's the new set of nominees and the new winner. So we have all of this in here. And if I just do this again, you'll now see that we have different folks coming in, a different award highlighted over here where it's saying now this is for media. And when I press the award button, then you see this is a different winner. So this is very, very simple and very powerful because this would extend across all of these. I simply have one XML file for each one of the awards with all this information. And if you're looking at what I actually have here in vMix, it's a very simple setup here. We only have, a limited number of elements here. So, Frank, this is, what? Oh, thank you for Frank is making a good point. So, in order to use GT Title Designer, which has all the animated elements we placed in here, you'd actually need vMix 4K or vMix Pro. And since we're actually here, I'll just throw this in. I would definitely, if you're interested, if you have a lower version of vMix and you're interested in upgrading, I would definitely reach out to Tom Sinclair. Tom Sinclair is over at Eastern Shore Broadcasting, and he does the Streaming Idiots show, and he always has a meetup out at NAB. So this could be, a great way to say thank you to somebody who actually does give a lot to the community. So definitely, if it's something that you'd be interested in doing to get, the advantages that GT Title Designer has in it, this could be something that, would be a great way to show a little gratitude for everything that, Tom has done in our community. So let me talk, though, a bit now about the XML piece to this, because we really haven't looked at that yet. So you saw the file that I set up. And so what I'm going to show here now is how that file gets married to the graphics we have here. If you look along the side here, what you have is all of the different elements on all of the different pages that we had set up in that GT title designer file for the nominees. So in this case, we have all the 4 nominees that are there, their images, their the backgrounds, the names, information. So how do I actually hook that up to an XML file? And if you look here, there's a little button here called data sources. So the way you marry data to things and titles in the system is you select whatever the item is you want. So let's go back and we'll start this at the beginning. So here is the headshot image. So that's the image that's being picked for the first nominee. But that is actually coming out of a data store. And the way this works is, let me sort of jump in here. Inside data sources, what I'm able to do is to load up a file and map a data element in that file. So, Richard, hi, thanks for joining us. So what we can do is load up a file and link an XML file and link one of the elements in that file as the source of the information we want to plug into that asset inside the title. So let me just show you how I do that. So in this case, I'm going to go down and say, I want to add a new data source that I can use. So we'll just call this test because we already have everything set up. And what I do now is I go to browse where it says URL file name, and I'm going to pick here, and I'll just pick this awards file here. So this is the file, the XML file that we looked at the beginning of the show. And let me just see if I can, well, let me see if I can remember this. So we're going to put the nominee's name in this case. So what we do is there's something called in XML called an XPath. Now this is not something that is particularly accessible to people that aren't in the techie realm, but what an XPath does is it describes the path you take through an XML file to get to a particular value. And if you remember, we actually set everything up with, I'm not sure whether it was award or awards, maybe plural. So the first bracket inside that XML file was called awards. Then we had something called nom01. That was the nominee. And then we had name first, last. So what I've just done here is I've told the vMix system to load this value from this file using this path to the information. So let me see if I got that right. So, okay, I probably messed that up. It probably needs, it may be award here. I'm sorry if I didn't remember this. I should have had this, this set up. So yes, okay, so it was award. So now what you see here is inside of vMix, I've created this new field called test, which has a text value, and that text value coming from the XML file is Claire Norbert. And this now allows me to, by simply changing the file, to change all the values that get displayed inside of my title that I'm overlaying over the graphic. So setting this up now, what I've done is I've set all these data elements up already, where if you look here and go into settings, so this is all set up with sort of organization name, and this is set up where I have the award title. And so if you go in here, this is all coming out of the file, but there's no real hard-coded values here. So if I close this out, you'll see here that all I need to do now is go in and say, what is, so actually, let's just do what we just did here. We have the first guest here, and we have their, let's see, the name for them. So let's see, text source, organization. Okay, name one, first, last. So if I go in here and say the data source for this can actually be test, because that is what we just set up was the first name. And you'll see here that it's an XML table, and what column? It's just the text column. So it's actually sorting this out and pulling this name out. And so now in doing this, we can actually change all of these names by just doing a file swap. And that is exactly what we do if you look at the Stream Deck. Inside, what I'll probably do here, let me jump this down and see if I can open the Stream Deck system here. Okay, so what I actually did now to make this happen is I set up to 8 awards that are possible. But if you look what I do here, I've set up something which basically is a button with an image that transfers a file. And what this does is it goes in here and executes this batch file, which again, we've shown this before. Let me see if I can just edit this here with. So all this is doing is it's taking and copying the XML file from this directory on my desktop into what I have as my active directory. So all of the assets that we pulled up as graphics come from one directory we set up called active. And all we're doing with this transfer file is changing which set of information we want to have active. And we do that by going into specific directories. So in this case, this is for award 1. So if you look across here, so what we're doing is we're saying, take all the information for award 1, where we are right now in this directory, and copy that into the active directory. And that is exactly what each one of these buttons on our Stream Deck will do. So as I go from one award to the next, I press that, it copies the XML file into the active directory, and then everything else inside of vMix can leverage that in the title. So again, a very, very simple way to do something which on the surface probably seems fairly complex. But I think this is the really cool thing about all of this. When you have things that you can leverage inside of your production to take some of the workload off, to simplify the workflow that you have when you're in a live situation, you can actually start to do very impressive looking types of productions. So probably if I just went through this as a basic type of thing, you would get to see that this is pretty flexible. So the nominees, this could be something where you actually don't want to have award winners, but think of the number of events that you may cover where you're recognizing people that are part of an organization. And you have something where you just want to give them a moment up on the screen. And maybe it's, for a sales event, or maybe it's for some type of religious event where it's not necessarily awards, but some type of event where you want to recognize people or highlight people individually with, a simple automation. This is exactly the sort of thing that you can use for that. And even though this is all laid out using vMix and GT Title Designer, the basic principles of sort of XML data and importing that to drive graphics, it's something we saw when I did this using the TriCaster as well. And it also applies to stuff with New Blue, Title Alive, and things like that. They all can leverage these types of constructs. So just having a mechanism that you think about as a general workflow would let you apply this in lots of different situations. So hopefully you found this an interesting exercise. We wanted to make sure that, since so many people out there are actually using vMix as a piece of this community, we want to make sure that we covered all these concepts foundationally. But everything here, is basically done with the session you saw, and a few triggers, a few shortcuts, and some XML data. So there's a lot that you can do as a solo director, producer, set up and tear down crew. And I know there's a lot of people that are in that situation. All right. So we will have an after show. I'll hang around, dive into detail on any of the things we covered here, anything with live streaming that you'd like to talk about will be on. So, feel free to call in or share in the comments in the after show. Uh, if you can't join us, I just want to let you know now for next week's show, we're going to take a look at a feature that's inside of TriCaster, but there may be other ways to do it in other products, but that are called hotspots, and how we could do an auction or a sort of a QVC sales type pitch uh, automation for those types of productions. So that will be next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you're not going to be here for the after show, I'd love to see you then. So thank you for joining us today. We'll go off the air for a minute and then pop back on and sit around and chat. So see everybody soon. Take care. Ah, you caught me. So so hi everyone. Welcome to the after show. So this is actually a fun show to put together because it covers some of the more nerdy aspects behind productions. But I think once you sort of get the basic concepts behind XML and data driven displays, it opens up a whole lot of things that you can do. So I mean, we showed this with uh, having nominees and an award winner, but these same types of XML constructs that you have could certainly be applied to something like a church setting where you wanted to put up notifications. John, so yeah, I mean there are so many different titling systems that are available out there. Everybody from you could use like even vMix Basic has some foundational titling capabilities that are built in, and that's like an $80 piece of software all the way up. But New Blue, there are elements to New Blue Title Alive that have a whole set of different tiers, all the way up to a broadcast $2,000 broadcast version. But again, these are all things that and like for the ATEM, which you're talking about, John, that's something that actually will take an external feed for doing graphics. So it gives you pretty much a choice of anything you want, as well as PowerPoint and other things that you could just put together to do some basic title type automations. Because in an earlier show we had talked about using PowerPoint with green backgrounds and keying out the green and using that to put up lower thirds. And that's something I know a lot of churches do to do song lyrics and other things where, a pro presenter, is probably, the king of the heap on that one. And, they have an incredible product. Uh, there are lots of ways to do things at a, sort of a lower end, set of tools that don't cost the same. So, Richard, yeah, Dropbox, Google Drive, all of those things are possible. So, one of the things we didn't talk about, and this is where things like Google Drive really shine, is that you can have people editing these things in real time and pulling that data in as a way to populate graphics. So I know in a lot of productions you can be getting information at the last minute. And the other thing I found is that lots of times you'll get information, there'll be different types of typos or things that were left off. So having the ability to not just have these things switch dynamically, but to be able to edit them dynamically, to sort of bring in somebody, at a remote location. I mean, that's probably the best aspect of the Google Docs solution that Richard was talking about, is that when you're at a production site, you don't necessarily have a system open where you can just get on and do stuff. But because that is a shared file that's sitting up on a common location, the ability to have somebody remotely go in, or a client to just go in and make last minute edits to that, is very, very helpful, and can make the workflow a lot simpler for folks that are trying to do these things. So John, oh yeah, John Holland is mentioning that he missed the beginning, but he's starting to get a hunkering for a Stream Deck. I love the Stream Deck. It's so flexible, and there are two things that I think make it, well, more than two, but there are two key things that I think set it apart. Uh, the first is that it it has folder structure. So I could, so say where I talked about the awards and setting all of that up. Uh, you can actually go in and set a folder for each award and have a whole bunch of things you may want to do under that. So if you were doing something where you were running a more complex production where each segment had all different aspects, Stream Deck's beautiful for that. You just say, I'm in this segment, and then the entire thing reconfigures for what you want to do there. The other thing that's really compelling about the Stream Deck is that there's a utility called Stream Deck Companion. It's done by a separate company from Elgato, who makes the Stream Deck. But this allows you to run the Stream Deck from a totally separate computer and talk to multiple systems across the network to make them do things in a coordinated fashion. So with the Stream Deck, and Companion, you can press a single key and send out a command to multiple systems that will then have them all respond simultaneously. So really great if you want to launch a video at the same time you bring up a graphic, at the same time you may trigger another macro to do things. You can do all those things now with the Stream Deck. And of course, the other thing which I really love about the Stream Deck is that because it has this nested structure where everything can change, it uses computer generated graphics for all the keycaps. So I can change things, change state. So I could set things up so if I covered an event, you could actually trigger the key to change a different color. So I know, oh, I hit that one already. So I just go to the next one. So lots of great feedback you can get, both visually for what you want to do and what each key means, but also for things you've done, and different types of feedback around timers or other things that you may have triggered in the past, so exactly the state of everything going on in your production looking at a Stream Deck. And John Drinkwater just mentioned about he's thinking about getting another Stream Deck. That's another great thing. You can set up multiple Stream Decks with a single system, and in fact you can have one Stream Deck control a second Stream Deck. So you could get like a Stream Deck Mini, or one of the standard Stream Deck, and use that to select different pages that will then call up different page sets on like a Stream Deck XL. So again, something that can make productions much simpler to do, where you could have a box dedicated to a function or a capability. Like, this switches what award I'm talking about, and this switches what I'm doing within that award. So it's very simple things to do. But Stream Decks are great. You won't catch me bad mouthing Stream Deck in any way. I think they're really phenomenal devices. And if you're a one man shop, they're the best. They'll just make your workflow so much simpler. Uh, and the reality is, they're not, for what they do, they're not terribly expensive, and things like Companion are free. So it gives you, a lot of bang for your buck for productions you're going to do that are really structured. So, is there anything anybody else wants to talk about? Because I don't just want to go prattling on here. Uh, if there are questions people have. Okay, then let me wrap up by telling you a little bit about what we want to do in next week's show. Uh, One of the features that are available inside of the TriCaster is something called hotspots. And now, what a hotspot is it lets you shine a camera on a solid colored surface, usually a green screen or a blue screen or something, and to segment an area of that, sort of take a square or circle, I think they're square areas that I can make any size I want, that anytime something moves inside that area, it triggers a macro. And this is really a powerful capability. But one of the things that I thought would be really cool to show is how you could use that where if I placed an item on a desk, how the act of doing that by basically using hotspots could trigger all the things you'd need for production. And I was thinking very much originally along like auctions where they, have lots of things where they put it up. But I was also thinking about like, these QVC, home shopping network types of environments where, you're constantly putting up items for sale, have a time window, and then want to move on to the next item. So that's what we're going to cover in the next show. We're going to really show how to set that up, how to use macros and automation to drive all of that. And we're also going to do a bit more of this XML data sources to populate data on that. So hopefully, this is something that you can, uh, waiting for an egg to hatch. Sorry, not, not sure if, yeah, I mean, there's, hopefully we didn't lay any eggs on this show, but you never know. We'll probably find out in the comments after as well. But we have, so I think everything that we're doing here is going to try to drive some common themes around, data-driven productions. But hopefully we'll show different interesting use cases that you can apply them to, and maybe some techniques or features inside different products that you haven't thought of using yet. But reciprocally, I'd love if you guys had ideas for shows, for things that you'd like to see us, jump on and cover. Definitely, send that to me, directly. So you could send that to John at streamingalchemy.tv, and that will get to me. You can leave them in the comments or message me in Facebook, whatever way is easiest for you. But I definitely would love to get ideas from everybody out in the community, because after all, this is a show that's designed around things that hopefully are interesting and relevant to you and can help you in the things you want to do in your live streams. So thanks for hanging out, everyone. We'll see you all next week. Have a great time. Take care. Bye.